we're back with another episode of Difficult Podcasters, probably the most difficult episode in regards to if you're going to talk about podcasts. So let's send it over to the beauty of the duo here. Kellie, Aliski, what's up? How you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Yeah, we got to figure out the Will and Grace and the Bette Midler to Bruce Valanche situation. That made me laugh. So we're somewhere in the mix of that. I'm Ronnie. And thoughts on the episode? What did you feel about it?
I mean, it was great. I thought it was really funny. I thought that it was interesting for the time because you got to remember this was a few years ago, but it still seems so relevant right now, especially in the, with podcasts and stuff, and the way that they kind of like when they're talking with the podcaster, the way he describes, well, podcasting can take you from here to there to this to that. And it's funny, but it still resonates even, these few years later, even more so, I think now. But it's just funny to see them, kind of going through the motions of doing whatever it takes to get where they need to be.
Yeah, it begins it's not really fish out of water, but it's the idea like they really want to be comedy writers. They want to make sure their comic routine is tight. This is not really what they want to do. This is like the swill. The one thing that got me though was more like, yeah, I think you mentioned like their desperation, or not even desperation, but trying to find where they fit. But I also liked that they sort of made fun of the podcasters.
Yeah,
they were like, oh my god, these mutants, these I used to call, and it's so tough because visibly, I'm not the most beautiful thing, but I would call some podcasters, some of the real thirsty ones. I'd be like, oh, I don't want to play in the swill, like in the, that was what I had felt. And I wonder if I felt that way because I had watched Julie and Billy, and you get a little arrogant, right?
Sometimes you can, and it's really funny. The show opens up that they're at a party and they're talking about how going to a comedy or a comedian's party is like the least funny thing that you can do because they're never funny. Like they're never fun.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of, it opens at a party, it, kind of like winds down a little bit, at a party. And that's one thing I like about these episodes is they kind of, they come full circle every time. And it just in such a hilarious way that every time they kind of go against their gut for their like plan B situation, it never, they always realize that they should kind of stick to plan A because plan B never works out.
Yeah, yes and no, because sometimes you're going to be told like to continue to try different things. So maybe there's a little bit of them that is just like curiously like trying to figure it out. I mean, even when they speak with the guy who's in the world of podcasting and he loves podcasting and he thinks it's the greatest thing on earth, again, like you said, this was a couple years ago, 2015-ish. Podcasts were still available, but maybe not as big as they are now, but they were still big then. And it's the effort that they're putting forth. So I like that. But even so, he asked the question, he's like, well, why don't you guys have one? And I loved that they were like, well, we had one, a long time ago, but it never picked up traction. There'll be times that I'm chatting with people too, and it'll be like, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And it's like, oh my God, I used to do like a digital, I think we called things digital back then, a digital radio show or a web show or a webisode.
Show, yes, webisode.
Coming off of those early, 2003, 2004 was my first getting my feet wet in radio. Like we did all of these things so early. So I kind of related to their like trying to jump into the double dutch with
for sure,
with like one leg, like we don't really want to get in here, but if we're gonna get in here, how's it gonna work? And
I love the hustle that they had, that he's telling them his dilemma and they're like, well, I hear that you're looking for new guests and you got them right here. Yeah. I like that hustle part of them. I've always been a fan of that with these characters, is they, no matter what, they're always going to hustle to try to get themselves to another level for whatever they're doing, and that is case in point right there.
Yeah, showbiz means everything to them. At this time, showbiz, this is the route they're going to take. So it gets real good. They are wonderful guests. Like they're very, 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 very funny. They lit the room up. They made the Will and Grace comment, where Will and Grace were a 6 and a 7, were a Bruce Valanche and Bette Midler, if they were a little more broad. It was funny. But the whole thing, like to be invited into the room was to lie. Like the whole way that this worked out was they were going to have to lie.
I mean, it's fake it till you make it, right?
which is something I don't enjoy. Like, is it really fake it till you make it? What are your thoughts on that? Is that like the way to go?
I mean,
I was watching a lot of a show that you like too. You and I both like How to Make It in America. I've been watching a lot of
yes.
old reruns of that. I kind of feel like that is set over there too. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of think it is, in all honesty, that was kind of always the advice and stuff that I would always hear like early on in my years, that was like, you can figure it out. Like, none of this stuff is rocket science. Like you can, get your foot in there and do whatever you got to do and then figure it out. And then you just have to prove that you can stay wherever you're going. And, and I have to say, like, I had no idea what a publicist was before I became one for 15 years, like I didn't go to school for that. I was just like, sure, I could do that. And that's kind of what they're doing. Is like, whatever, I can figure it out.
So that's not really,
I would say I was an atheist though.
Oh yeah. That's something
like, I don't know if I could go that far left with something.
Yeah. They're pretty good at a lie. A good lie is a lie.
Well, they're writers, right? They're writers, so they can essentially write whatever they need to be in any situation for any scenario, and they're good at it.
Yeah.
And this kind of proves that because, they turn it on and they convinced everyone, him, and when they went to meet his friends and everybody thought that they were funny atheists.
Oh, could you imagine though, a podcast bar? I mean, even like off the top of the show, it's like, what's worse than going to a party with comedians who are like unfunny comedians in terms of banter? Not all comedians are like that, but there's definitely a truth. But a podcast bar, oh my God. And the part that got me, Kelly, may I tell you, the part that got me was when they were like, hi, Skippy, tell me about your podcast. What's your podcast about? Mine's a podcast about, the air on Tuesdays, every Tuesday, the way the air breathes. It's like, it's so corny, especially in the geist of they are so much bigger than it, but then they got to like kind of crunch the whole situation and be like, yeah, we're doing a podcast about not believing and books. It's so hard, but I think you mentioned a point that I didn't even think of. It's admirable of these two. They're such good friends to each other. They really are the Will and Grace.
Oh, they really are.
Bet and Bruce. Yeah.
They really are. And, it's just funny because we see their relationships with each other versus their relationships with other people. It's just not the same level by any means. Like poor Arthur, he goes to this podcast bar and he sees his arch nemesis NPR because he's PBS and they just hate each other. And there's no sense of empathy for him for that. It's just like, oh, get over it. We're gonna go get on NPR and deal with it. And poor guy sits at the bar, gets drunk, talking smack, and he deals with it.
It was good to see Arthur get like that because Arthur's always taking so much from Julie, like, oh, shall I get you this to eat? If you don't want this, consider a text message and I'll get you something, more children's menu-ish. He does so much. The only thing that bugs him is don't get in the way of his job. Don't get in the way of like the culture that is PBS. But yeah, the way Billy and Julie are rocking at this, godforsaken podcast bar is to maneuver and to manipulate.
I mean, and they're working Angela from NPR. They're working her hard.
But isn't it funny? They already stepped away from their original goal. The original goal was they were gonna rock out with the Frank Zappa looking guy, and they were gonna do what he needed. But then they do perform and they do well. The door opens up, but then they're willing to change so quick. So you're right. It is a fake it to you.
I mean,
maneuver
get in where you fit in, right? So
there you go.
It's like whatever works because NPR gets millions of hits, more so than his podcast network. So they're going to go where the big numbers are. They're not, they're going for the big fish right away. They're not trying to take baby steps.
They were very charming too. I think, like they're like looking at NPR gal and they're giving NPR gal like all of these kind of like stereotypes, like, oh, we like clothes that don't do well in the washing machine. Like they were trying to find like this thing that worked, and then books was the
to
thing
relate.
That worked.
And then the books,
did a small part of you feel a little bummed for the girl though, because you knew she was going to get played in that situation? Did a small part of you?
Yes, and she was so looking forward to it because whoever invites the curator of these things to be a guest, nobody really cares about the behind the scenes people.
And they still don't.
They still don't. And it's just, when we kind of already know how that's going to go. And it's just, oh, poor thing. What a bummer. She was so excited about it. Finally felt seen.
Can I ask you a question? In the show, we see Julie and Billy through their eyes of how they view the podcast space. How do you think Julie in the show is Julie Kessler, Billy Epstein? gotta get the characters names. How do you think they would view the queen Kellie over there and the kid Ronnie? What would they say? What would they say about us? Do you think we would do okay? Would we speak their same language? I think we would kind of speak their language, but because we're in the sense of a bar, we might be a little too eager, because we want to win too.
Absolutely. I kind of see it as, we'd get picked on a bit. But I think there would be, because we have similar viewpoints on certain things, I think there would be like a little bit of respect there, but I do think there'd be jab after jab also, which would be kind of fun.
Yeah, they would probably call me Fat Reba. Maybe that's what would happen, actually. They'd be like, oh, well, he's Fat Reba, so what you gonna do? Yeah, okay.
But I mean, it kind of goes into the thing, like when it comes to, which plays into another part of the episode, like when it comes to people in your life or criticisms or fans or audiences, what do you pay more attention to? The people that are mean or the people that are nice? Well, because anybody that gives you positive compliments, you kind of like, do you brush it off more, or do you kind of revel in those or focus more on the negative?
Gosh, well, with the advent of social media, it seems like you have to focus on everything, whatever happened to the days where like somebody, like I can write something on Kellie's post and it's just a comment, but now like the way it goes, it's like, well, Kellie has to now see it and she has to give her opinion of seeing it. And then I've got to give an opinion that she saw it. And just so you know, I hearted it. It's a lot going on. So part of me is like, oh, wow, Julie in the show is being too much. Like she should have more self-confidence. She's a pretty confident girl. Why would this let her be broken down by an anonymous happy hour 37? But the reality is when her world is within Twitter, her world was within recaps, like there is like so much validation. And that's confusing to me as a viewer, because I don't find Julie insecure whatsoever, but it does go to show that the strongest of people, AKA the meanest of people, and Julie can also be like, wait a minute, why are you coming for me? And when it got personal, right.
And they can also be the most vulnerable. And a lot of people that kind of, humor is the best way to kind of distance yourself from criticism, right? Like making jokes about it is a defense mechanism. So that could be something that she plays into a lot. And she really wants to know who this happy hour person is, and she sets up a meeting and she actually shows up, which I thought was pretty ballsy of her. Let's get face to face and see what's going on with this. I mean, how many people on the internet today will be able to stand up and actually stand behind the crap that you talk and then be able to take the crap back from someone and set that up yourself?
All of what you just said sounds exhausting, Kellie. It sounds because you come from the world of PR, I think you might be more in tune with the connection of the social media. And now I sound very old because I'm calling it the social media, but maybe you're in tune with constant communication. I think constant communication throws me off. So yes, I agree with you. I give Julie a ton of kudos points, because like, that's not a smart move really, to just be like, oh, let's go.
Yeah, look your tormentor in the face.
But I love who the tormentor was. I think go for it. Tell me. Oh
no, it's like the best thing ever. I mean, could you imagine, sitting down, walking in, and then this like Kathy Lee Gifford like shows up at your table and she's been taunting you and calling you names, and then all of a sudden your feelings aren't hurt anymore. Now you kind of like it. You're like this person.
So who's a person that you would be, of course, if it was a negative comment, you'd be upset, but who would be your Kathy Lee Gifford in that situation? Somebody that you respect enough that you'd be like, oh, sorry.
Oh, mine would be Neil Patrick Harris. Like, I'm obsessed.
Your Twitter handle does say NPH is your hero. What gives? What's happening there?
I adore him. Like, I really do. And I have forever. And I loved, his little stint in the way he makes fun of himself, and his, How I Met Your Mother was, a great show of his, but also when he did like Harold and Kumar, and he was like a cracked out drugged out version of himself. And just I think that he's such a great character actor, and it doesn't really focus too much on, you know, his personal life. Like, he's such a good actor, you don't even think about his personal life when he's in a character, and I love that.
I love
that he's so versatile that way.
I think
and
about
he's just like such a nice guy.
I think about his versatility
and
his personal life on several of occasions.
Well,
Kellie,
you know, I had the opportunity to meet his husband once at Sundance, and we had all gotten snowed in, and he was at this event that I was running the red carpet, and I had to go introduce myself to him, of course, because seriously, like, I am a huge Neil Patrick Harris fan. And I was working for Playboy at the time, and they had been to the Playboy Mansion at the Halloween party already, which I had gone up and said hello real quickly. But I never wanted to get into much of a conversation, because it's like the worst when you really like someone and then they turn out to not be what you think, and then it kind of ruins it. Yeah. So I never let myself linger long enough to even get to the point where they could possibly ruin it for me.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to Sundance. I end up like getting him a car to get out of this snowstorm, and he sends me the sweet, and I'm telling him the story that I'm like obsessed with his husband, and he's like, oh my God, I am too. And he's just so cute about it. Sends me an email the next day just thanking me for everything, and then gives me their phone number. And I was like, and I emailed him back, and I was like, David, I really appreciate you, and you were like the best ever, but I really don't think that you understand the level to which my obsession goes. I don't think giving me your phone number was a very smart move.
Yeah, because she's been loving him for a minute. Oh, that's a cute story, though.
It was really funny.
Yeah, that would be your person. That so you would, you'd be like, oh my God, this is the commenter. You've been saying all these mean things, but you would back up. You wouldn't be defensive because it would be your hero. You may laugh at me, but I think Carson Daly would be mine. Carson Daly.
Really?
Yep. Not a lot of people put respect on Carson Daly's name like they should. And they got a bitch slapping coming from me, because I think Carson Daly, let's give him his flowers, because he is very, 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 very good at what he does. I just like him a lot. So yeah, if I was up on the Twitters and I was messaging things and I got a little like too wordy, and then I had to meet my commenter, happy hour 37, and it was Carson Daly, I'd be like, oh gosh. Okay, I'm sorry. And I would do the same with Kathie Lee Gifford, because she was great. She was great with Julie.
And she's very great. But no, Carson is a great one, and he absolutely brought himself up, and he's done, like, I mean, Good Morning America, Today Show, Today Show, Today Show. Like, but to come up from radio and then a VJ and then, you know what I mean, his night show all the way to the Today Show, amazing.
You know who I like? I like people. This is off topic. We'll get back to Julie and Kathie and everything. I like Carson because he's the antithesis of me. I mean, I'm sure he's worked insanely difficult, but I feel like he's so casual, and he's so like things just kind of have went. He hasn't like put a lot of stress to do what has had to happen, and it's all sort of happened because he's so great. I'm a bit of the opposite. All I do is try to make something happen, and it just doesn't work. And this is why I love Julie and Billy, because they also don't work.
Because there's two kinds, right? The ones that and maybe he just seems that way, but maybe it is the same. Maybe we're all just trying to make something work until it works, and sometimes it hits and sometimes it doesn't. True. I don't know, but some people can make it look so effortless when in reality it absolutely wasn't.
Question to you in the creative space, and we'll get back to the show more so, but like, what do you feel about the podcasters? Because this whole thing was about podcasters. I'm not really of the liking of being very engageable. Would that be a word? Engageable or engagement with you hear young podcasters, brand new, haven't been doing it for 5 minutes, but they're very like, oh, my fans and thank you. Do you like the communication? Because I feel like we're in that era that like even like talent like Miley Cyrus is always like, oh, I love to tweet with my people. Do you like that from a performer standpoint?
I personally do. I mean, like the shows and the podcasts that I've done before, I actually really liked engaging with people and even debating some of my opinions. Like I am all open to that.
Oh no,
I like it
absolutely not. Oh my,
I love having smart conversations about things. So if you are, I mean, and all the podcasts I've done have been about TV shows that I like. So if you want to dig down and get character deep, let's go for it. And I love that kind of banter back and forth. So I welcome it, even if it's not my same opinion, even, especially if it's not my same opinion. I want to see the other side of the table. I might not like it when you're telling me, but I appreciate the difference of opinion. I like the back and forth. I do. I appreciate somebody who's going to take the time, that listens to what I have to say and gives me something back. I respect that. I like that.
I think we just discovered that Kellie's a better listener than Ronnie, and that's why I have my set of problems, because I don't like to listen. I like to, and I think you're better at it because you're like, okay, I can hear what the person's saying. I'm more like, don't talk to me. I'm good. The great Violet Chachki, season 7 winner of RuPaul's Drag Race, was recently on another podcast talking about what is it, this culture where we post something and then people got to give their opinion. I don't want your opinion. Just look at it and move on. Violet Chachki is Ronnie's, in my heart, because that's how I like to do things. But it has changed, and it is paramount to Julie's work, because she does need to tweet in order to get her recaps to go anywhere. She does need to tweet to engage with the talent and stuff like that. But it was a eye-opening moment, and I'm glad Kathie Lee Gifford ripped into her in a nice way.
Absolutely, and that's kind of the great thing, because it offered her a chance to see a different perspective. And she pointed out something interesting, is like, can you be funny without breaking someone else down? Like, can you? And then you got to stop and think about it, because are you actually funny, or are you funny at the detriment of other people? Like, can you not be funny without talking shit? And that was like the interesting thing that she brought up. And, she said, go do something, watch something, be present in something, and do it with an open heart, without judgment, and see how you feel. And she automatically said something snappy back, and she's like, see, you can't help yourself.
I know, and she came at Goldie Hawn of all people. Please don't ever do that.
I know, how dare she?
Nonetheless, sorry, the technical situation here is moving. Nonetheless, I will say it was an intriguing story arc, that while she's earning this information, or learning this information, her mom, who's usually extremely confident, is put in a very interesting situation. At first, we don't know what's going on. We're like, what? A menopausal musical, which anything that Marilyn
divorce musical. She was basing it on something similar that was, had to do with women and the things that they deal with. But she did this whole thing about divorced women.
And I thought first, like, whoa, what's going on? Marilyn's just so particular. But I love how the show went forward, and it was like kind of a moment where you're like, oh wow, Marilyn she's a little nervous about it. She would love the support. And yeah, it really turned it on Julie's ass, because Julie now had to be like, look, I'm being told that all I do is judge other people. What's my actual talent? And now my mom's trying to do something. I can't just so easily resort to my old ways and just knock my mom. Especially, what's really great about that is, especially the mom is essentially not a participator, or no, she's essentially a participator. She's not a performer. So she's giving it a shot. And I think I'm guilty of that too, where I tend to be so judgmental. And it's like, I could talk about all the things I have not done that I would like to do. And then it's like, oh my God, years go by, I haven't done those. So before you get so snippy and judgy, maybe take a look at yourself and see how well you're feeling. Make fun of that.
Go into it with an open heart, because you know what? God loves you, even you.
Oh my gosh. Kathie, but that was Kathie growing up, remember? Like Kathie aged so great. And I don't just mean physically. Like as a kid, I was always because I've been wanting to be like, I like talk shows forever. And so I was always like, oh my God, Regis is so great. But I was like, the stuffy lady, the Christian lady, I didn't really enjoy her, but I got to enjoy her a little bit more towards the end. And I love when she was with Hoda. She became more natural. And so anyways, it just, the God thing was interesting, because it did feel like a play on, kind of who her image was. I mean, as you know, she has been made fun of since way before the internet even started.
Oh, absolutely. So she had to come back around, though, because she's being mean, essentially. So she has to come back around and show, she's a true Christian person. She just wants you to know that you don't have to be mean to succeed, basically, was her point, I think. It's like, you don't have to tear somebody else down in order to build yourself up, which is like an interesting line, because, everybody likes, and something showed up on social media where somebody had posted something like, I get more likes when I'm talking about something negative versus something positive, and it's just interesting. And that's kind of like what everyone does, right? It's like a car wreck. You can't stop, you can't turn away from it. You have to see what's going on. You can't, it's just a very interesting thing how people gravitate more towards negativity than positivity. And it's the same with Billy in the episode. He's ditching Carl because Carl's too nice. He wants somebody meaner. He's like, I wish he was meaner.
True. Okay. But before we judge Billy, it's probably pretty hard. I don't think we've all been around people that are like, what is the rule? 101, the rule is if you enjoy the person and you give them too much attention, that person may not want the attention back. So necessarily not that he was just being nice, but like back up, maybe is you want what you can have. And this Mr. Nicety niceness, he also depressed me as well. But it could have been because he was too nice, but it also could have been
you just want to be miserable.
No, I think it was okay. Oh, back to you. There's not many people
poor
that
Carl, he just wanted to make dinner. He even checked on Billy.
Oh,
he wanted
bullshit!
To make sure he
bullshit!
Was okay.
You would not date him, Kelly.
I would not. No.
See, so look at
I'm talking shit. Like no,
I know, but you had me this close to feeling like I'm making some errors. I was like, maybe I am a little too whatever. Well, okay, so but then it gets complicated because then Billy gets into some fun. We love some good old cruising fun now, don't we? Well,
oh my gosh,
we meaning
get himself in trouble.
Yep. Loved it. And who's gonna get you more in trouble than what's his name? Seth.
Seth Meyers,
talk show guy. Yeah, comedian. Yeah, SNL. Yeah, all that. I thought that was funny. I thought that was great. And yeah, you gotta just represent the good old cruising places from back in the day. I could remember.
How could they take advantage of someone that wanted to go on the side of the building and do things he wasn't supposed to?
I think you were supposed to do those sorts of things with other grown men. Depending on what story you're reading, Kelly. Shit, I was like,
you would.
I was like, do you need a third?
Oh my
I'm
God.
kidding. No, but so that's the question. Carl, nice, available, does all the right things, but that doesn't really like speak to you. Or I mean, it wasn't an either or, but it was unique. But poor Billy.
It was the con man was more interesting. So
yes. Billy likes a little mischievousness.
Mm-hmm.
I can't get my words.
Himself in a little bit of trouble.
Matthew also gets in trouble, which is interesting because we see that Matthew is now dating, his
Barry.
95. Are they already married? No, they're not married yet.
No, I said, wasn't his name Barry?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Matthew, hats off to you. I like the idea. We don't know if Barry is rich. We could assume, right? Maybe we shouldn't assume. But I'm all on board for 95 billionaire. I am totally like, when someone could ask me like, hey, Ronnie, like what has your dreams and aspirations been like? I'm like, well, I've been kind of not winning for 20 years, but I've been trying. And if I can just meet one little billionaire that's 95, let's call it a day. I would be very happy on my yacht. Kelly, you could come with us. Yes. Thank you very much. Did I share too much?
No, not at all. Not at
enough.
And it's funny because you see Billy looking at that situation in the beginning of the episode where he's at the restaurant and Matthew's sitting on Barry's lap and they've got the dog and then Denise comes and they're singing and it's a whole thing. And I love Billy because he's like, what the f- is going on here?
I did feel sad too, because I feel like there's all these moments that I'm, or you probably have these too. We all probably do, where you're just like, damn, I'm just like not in the mix at all. Like I can't crack a joke that works, referencing even earlier.
But it's kind of like one of those days where it's just like nothing hits, it's just like nothing works all day.
Yeah, it's like an invisible like line, it's like everyone's having so much joy and then you can't have no joy. Like what is going on?
And now he's got to go pick up the dogs.
Oh yeah. What do you think about just I'm not the biggest, I will say, I'm not the biggest dog carer ever. However you say that, taking care of a dog person, but I have taken care of Kelly O's gorgeous dogs, and that was a good experience. Yeah. I think, but I'm not the friend that you asked to take care of the dogs typically, but I did for you. Yeah, I did that.
Yes, I know.
And you have good dogs. You have good normal dogs that make sense.
Well, my dogs are kind of like people. So, you can see this one back here. That's pretty much what she does. Like,
yeah.
unless there's food around, that's about as lively as she gets.
She's a good binge TV watcher. You know what I mean?
She is. She takes naps when I want to take naps. Like, she watches shows when I want to watch shows. Like, she's the best.
Yeah, yeah. Totally.
Yeah, but one time I tried to take her hiking up to the Hollywood sign, and she like pulls over to the side and she's like, I'm not going anywhere else. Sorry.
Yeah. I think it was nice though that, you know, Billy didn't really want to do it, but he was going to take care of the dog. So that was at least a nice gesture. This is that lean on each other thing that they have going for each other. So it
was one of their boundaries that he did cross, because she was in a pinch, because she won't go to the gym with him and he doesn't deal with her dogs.
Oh. She doesn't go to the gym because she doesn't want to go to the gym, or she doesn't go to the gym because, you know, she doesn't have the resolve to work out, I guess.
Both, probably. But he's like, I don't ask you to go to the gym and you don't ask me to deal with your dogs. And
we find out in the later episodes that he goes to the gym for other reasons, you know.
Yes.
But you know, that's not today. That's not today. God, but coming to find out, if you watch these episodes consecutively, as we have been kind of doing, Billy gets busy quite a bit. I didn't ever realize that was such a part of the show.
He does. He's got a little active little social life there for someone that's always complaining that he doesn't.
Yeah, he's in the words of Wendy Williams, he's dipping and doing. So yeah. Salute to you, sir.
Yeah. But I mean, overall, I think it was a fun episode. You know, by the end of it, they're outed that they're not atheists. And then they find out that as they're getting the apartment ready to do the NPR lady interview, Arthur went to go pick up a bunch of books from the bookstore, and then the bookstore books are filled with bed bugs.
Yes, we need not ever mention those two words, but yes, you stay away. Unless what did it Julie and Marilyn say? Oh, and there was also, it was at the Abercrombie. What? In that case, then that's okay. In that was a message from the old guy upstairs.
So they're burning books. Angela is ecstatic about this interview. She's gonna walk by as they're burning books. And by the end of the episode, everybody's telling them to go F themselves.
Yeah, there was a lot of that. There was the podcast guy kind of said that, and you know,
and Carl, because the podcast guy outed the lie that Billy had told him about having food poisoning on accident.
Okay, but was it really a lie? Was Billy that close with Carl? I feel like I'm not defending Carl in this our episode.
But I bet you anything, now that he told him to go fuck himself, he's gonna like him now.
I personally thought my loins changed too. I was like, yeah, that a boy. Tell me what you really want. So real quick, can we just talk about how remarkable Marilyn, her show?
Oh yeah, because the show ultimately is all about her and all the people that she's helped.
It's ultimately about me. If I ever get down and out, which happens often, I want to do a one-person show where, well, I guess you would need other people too. I'd want to do a show where I just get to tell everyone how great I am, because they're gonna judge anyway. You know what I mean? Might as well. But I thought it was cute. I thought Marilyn, you know, she had to check in with Julie, and Julie kind of gave her a little bit of grief. But Marilyn's like, well, you know, I did work hard at it and I tried my best, but it doesn't.
And she did say, good job, Mom. She did, you know, she did acknowledge the work that it took it to do it. And which I think is what Marilyn needed. They had that little awkward, maybe I'll hug you, maybe I won't. And then she went to go see her doorman.
And my favorite part though, too, is like when Marilyn returns to like her confidence, you know, that she always has. She's like, and she knows the show went, how it went, and how many people were there. She's like, listen, I'm ready for my Q&A. And we have to live like that. We have to live like Marilyn. We don't have to be the way Marilyn was with the microphones. Marilyn with the microphones, right. and Esmeralda, maybe not our favorite. But it was just a whole unique thing. I love the whole chasing around where Julie has to go try to find these old microphones, because they did have them before. We used to do a podcast. It was a really great episode, in my opinion, about trying to find, you know, the right opportunity and what does work and what fits. And yeah, I mean, like them all. One of my favorites. Gets us excited about the Christmas episode. I do enjoy singing the Christmas song.
Yes.
That's neither here nor there. My question to you as we wrap out, and big shout out to our little loving sponsor, ViridianRow.com. ViridianRow.com.
Yes.
So Is the shirt you're dashing one of those?
It is actually my Latina shirt.
Yeah,
Yes,
you look
is.
great. You look great. If you're listening audibly, come look at our beautiful faces. Viridian Row. My question to you is, what do you think in where we are now from 2015 when the show started? What is the consistent thing to succeed in the podcasting space, and what is something you want to do in the space? What is a goal of yours?
I mean, the thing is actually consistency. Is, if you have something to say, I tend to find that when you have something to say, there's usually someone that wants to listen, and you can't get so wrapped up on numbers and just like hitting so many numbers. If there's something you want to put out in the world, you should go for it and do it, and things will come. Like, I think if you stress too much and you try too hard, it's just not going to turn out the way that you really want it to. And, some things do happen faster than others, and it can be super frustrating. But I think that that's the constant from then to now, is just, have a little patience, kind of, really put out what you want and not trying to duplicate what is already there, or trying to kind of, follow the mold because this works for someone. It might not work for you. Just kind of sticking to who you are, staying true, having patience, and being consistent.
Well, that is all good to hear, because in the vein of collaborating with other people, like I always worry, like, especially, sometimes younger people, they just have a different way to do this. So when Kellie and I got together to do this podcast duo here, it made sense. So I'm glad that all of the stuff that you said, it's kind of like, what's funny is, yeah, all of the other things you could do to get on the fast track, at what cost? We like it as far as a TV show that they were going to not believe in God, and we thought, and they were not gonna they were gonna be book readers, and they weren't really book readers through NPR. But as a regular human, whole person, all of those tricks sort of fizzle out. So it's nice to like have a person that also will work with you, and we both have the same vision, because my vision is like that too. My vision always gets like, I don't like the new tricks that the younger generation kind of does.
Right.
It does happen faster. But what's funny is, you see sometimes people, what do they always used to say? Easy up, easy out. There's a lot of people who do that, and then you as a creator as well, you feel like, oh my gosh, do I need to resort to doing those things? But then you have the big balls and the confidence that I think we have in this show, where we're like, nah, it's gonna be good. Not to say we're the best. That's not what I'm saying.
No, I mean, it's like,
we have room to grow.
One person listens, that's something. You know what I mean? It's like, it's something fun. We're appreciating the work of someone else, and, digging deep into it, finding the way that it relates. And just like with this episode, by the end of it, they're saying, we're not backup plan people. We're not going to pretend to be atheists. We're not going to pretend to be book readers. And when Angela is the last person to tell them to go fuck themselves, they laugh about it, because it further proves that point that they don't have to resort to those tricks. And you know what? Neither do we.
So the fact that they don't want to do this, just keep it at that. They don't want to do this.
Right.
And they know what their skill set is. They know what their talent is. I think there's a fine line between switching it up and keeping your mind open to all of the different things, but like have a plan. I think that's cool. Not everything needs to be like TikTok this quick. It's nice to chat about stuff,
Right. It's fun. Take your time, break it down, talk about it, like really get into it, understand, what you're doing, and, have some fun with it.
It is nice to see people make shifts to their career too. So one of the guys that was, what were they, the perverted acapella guys? One of those guys in the show, not real people in the show, was Akash is his name, and he is on one of the biggest podcasts with what is his name, Andrew Schultz. So you see, like, he's more of a stand up was more his direction, but he shifted into podcasting.
Yeah.
He's on a really big one. I think it's called Flagrant 2 or something of that nature. So one of the guys that was in the little scam situation, he's on one of the biggest podcasts out right now. So it just keep those eyes and ears open, shift everywhere. Last week, I think at the end of the show, you said you were gonna like look into your old writings. We never know. Kellie may have a hit on her hands, but it would have to be through Patreon, because we are not giving this shit out for free no more. I'm just kidding.
That's right. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I was inspired. I didn't get too frustrated this episode.
I know.
Although
we saw a little bit more of a positive side tonight.
Except for you got my text messages earlier before we did the show.
Well, I mean, because we always
Bastard.
have the difficulty. Like, there's always some difficulties that we go through before we even start, which is hilarious because it's perfect since we're talking about this stuff. But
and I feel like it's gonna stop. I'm like, oh, my preparation. I prepared more. You prepared more. We had our schedule intact, and then right before, once again, I'm sweating on the. That was nightmare.
Every time.
Thanks again to ViridianRoad.com. Difficult People, the TV show is fantastic. We're so close to our wrap up of season 1, and we'll get into season 2 and 3. DifficultPodcasters.com is where you can see all the episodes, and ViridianRoad.com is where you can see our little sponsor situation. Kellie, any last words?
Thanks so much to everybody that is tuning in and listening to us banter and bitter and do all the things that we do. And, please make sure to engage. We want to hear from you. Leave comments, tweet us, do all that fun stuff. And let's see if we can, keep talking about it. We'd love to hear what you guys think of these episodes. And if it's your first time watching the show because you're listening to us, even better. Let us know how you like it.
And who's to say banter and being bitter isn't the way to go? What's with all this with all this smiling all the time, with this giggling? Get out of my face with that shit. No, I'm kidding. Difficult Podcasters. I'm Ronnie. That's Kellie. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you.
Bye.